So good morning everyone. শোনা যাচ্ছে তো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
ওকে, তাহলে আগের দিন যেটা নিয়ে আমরা শুরু করেছিলাম সেই জায়গাটা আজকে শেষ করবো। সেটা হচ্ছে ফাংশন অফ সেভারাল ভ্যারিয়েবলস। তো ফাংশন অফ সেভারাল ভ্যারিয়েবলস I talked little bit, basically introduced the notations and definitions. Definitions means the idea of limit, continuity, differentiation. Obviously differentiation here means partial differentiation, and how these ideas are goes a little bit different from your uh, single variable calculus or single variable ideas of limit, continuity, and differentiation. So, as I told you that there are much more scope here, because you know that in function of single variable, whenever x is approaching towards a point, it can approach from either side, from the left hand side or from the right hand side. But here the picture is much more richer. That means it can approach towards a point from any side, not only right, left, from or from up, down, but from 360-degree around that point by any curve. So, in the function of single variable, it can approach from either right hand side or from left hand side via straight line. So we have a straight line. Actually, we approach via axis, but here we need not have to approach the point through axis. We can approach the point through any path. You can take any path, any straight line, any curved line, anything else. So you can approach that point. And the definition of limit, continuity, you have to assimilate those ideas, and you have to reformulate the ideas of limit and continuity what you have learned in function of single variables, and just you reformulate those ideas via that 360-degree approach. So you just incorporate those path, or take the neighborhoods like disc, like rectangle, maybe some in some cases can be square. So this kind of neighborhoods are possible. So in general, in function of single variable, if this is a point on a number line, say this is a point, so you can have neighborhood like this, but here neighborhood means this is a two-dimensional figure. So this is a point xy, so you can have neighborhood like this disc, or you can take this kind of rectangle. All this shape you can take. So actually we take rectangle and this disc type shape because they are easy to handle or easy to express in via some equations, because you know very well the equation of circle, that means a disc, or you know very well, or we can write the equation of rectangle very well. But apart from this, you can take any other figure, but the equation you have to be these equations you have to be manageable. So actually these two things are very manageable. So actually we do actually to we write or take this circle or rectangle in the definition of limit, continuity, everywhere. So let's begin. So I think today the first thing I am going to talk is some chain rules. So chain rules, I think you all know. So this thing you have learned in your 11 or 12 standard, that how to apply chain rules. That means you are doing derivatives of a function with respect to some variable, and that variable is not exactly present in the function, but it presents in the function via some or via independent variables. That means you have a function f. This is a function of independent variable x, and again this independent variable is again a function of t. So now if I ask you that what is df dt, and you can at once say that it will be df dx into dx dt. So this kind of thing is called chain rule. So you just taking derivative with respect to the, so you have you have to perform the you have to calculate the derivative with respect to some other independent variable which is t, which is not exactly present here, but it is present virtually, or actually present in via that independent variable x. So the independent variable is again a function of another independent variable t. So that's why f is big, or f becomes the function of this independent variable t. So, and this is the rule by which you can relate, or you can find out the derivative of the of this function f with respect to this independent variable t. So this is the way of calculating this derivative via chain rule. So this thing actually you have learned. So now I am going to talk this chain rule, or what is the status of this chain rule here in function of two variables. So in function of two variables, I can actually say two or 3 points. Actually, there are many possibilities here. So the number one possibility which you can check, that, for example, this f is a function of u. Okay, so f is a function of u, and this u is a function of x and y. So if you check the function of only one variable, or the calculus you have already learned in your lower classes. So see, so thing is very much similar. In fact, there is only one difference, that this independent variable is function of another two independent variables. In this case, there are only one variable t, but here you see there are two variables x and y. This u is again function of another two independent variable. This is an independent variable, and this is also another independent variables. So f is, or it becomes function of two independent variables. Now, since f is a function of these two independent variables, we can calculate, or if you want to find out what is df dx or what is df dy, actually there is a little bit problem. Why? Because this function f, or f becomes, actually f is a function of a single variable, single independent variable, but ultimately, since u is a function of two independent variables, f becomes function of two independent variables x and y. That means you can write f is a function of u xy in this way. So f becomes function of two independent variables xy. And as I have said you earlier, that whenever there is a function which is a function of two independent variables x and y, whenever you talk about the derivatives of this function, about x or about y, we generally take one variable to be constant and we do derivative like before, as we have done in function of single variable. And in that case, we just rewrite these notations. This notation is changed to this notation, and obviously this notation is changed to this notation. So we don't write df dx or df dy. Instead, we write df del f del x, or del x of f, or actually is said to be del x of f, and this is del y of f. So while calculating this thing, we just assume that y to be constant and that x to be constant, and you just take the derivative as you have done the function of single variable. Just enough. There, all the rules are there, so no problems in all the problems. Just this nomenclature are actually extra burden. So now, if I ask you, so what is the meaning of del f del x, or how to find out this del f del x, because f is not an exactly a function of xy, but it's exactly a function of u. So the thing is like this del f del x is basically, see, you have we have this dependence of f over u and u over x and y. So we transfer this definition or this derivative, this partial derivative, via chain rule like this, in this way: df du into del u del x, in this way. So one thing you have to keep it in mind, that this is exactly like the previous one that I have discussed, that this thing df dt is basically del f del x, or sorry, df dx into dx dt. But in this case, see, here we have used d, not the delta, but in this case we have used delta, not the d. Why it is so? Because while using this, you have to note that f is a function of single variable u. So you don't have to consider the partial derivatives. That means you have to only consider the standard derivative. Standard derivative means du of f. This is the standard derivative of function of single variable. So you are considering the function f as a function of single variable. And now, whenever you are taking the derivative of u with respect to x, you are taking the partial derivatives. Why? Because u is another function which is a function of x and y, two independent variables. So since u is a function of two independent variables, you can't say du dx or ddx of u. You have to take del x of u. So this is the reason why we generally write this del x of f to be df du into del x of u, in this way, in this fashion. So you just remember this thing, there is a multiplication sign involved there. So this is the definition. And what is the definition of del f del y? Is a very similar thing. This is again df or du of f, and obviously this becomes del y of u. So these two things, this is the chain rule here for function of two variables, or you can extend it for wait, okay. So this is the chain rule for function of two variables, and you can extend, you can actually extend this definition for more than two variables. More than two means you have x, y, z, all those things. That means u becomes a function of more than two variables. You just need to define what is del f del x del f del y del z in this way. So you can just extend this kind of definitions in this way. So I think you can do it. So actually I am talking, or whatever sums I will do, or whatever sums you will encounter in your exams or even in your book. So every year you will find two independent variables. Nowhere you will find more than two variables. That's all in your syllabus. But the thing is very similar, and you can actually yourself can actually extend these definitions. It's a very straightforward. So now this is a chain rule. This is a particular kind of chain rule where the function f is a function of a single variable, but that single variable is a function of more than one independent variable. This is the case. There may be some other cases also, like this thing, this number 2. Here we consider f to be a function of not a single variable, but more than, you can take f is a function of u, v and w. Okay, so these things possible, and this u, v, w, they are all functions of x. So that means u is a function of xy, v is a function of xy, and obviously w is a function of xy. So the situation is a little bit different here. So in the previous case, we have f is a function of, or f was a function of a single variable, and that single variable is function of another two independent variables. But in this case, this is an upgraded version where f is a function of three, actually more than one independent variables. So you can take two, just for the sake of understanding as that three, but you can also take two. It can be a function of uv. So these type of definitions you can extend, or you can downgrade to two variables to uv, or you can upgrade more than three variables. So this uvw, they are all functions of x and y. So these two things again, they are all independent variables. This x and y independent variable. So now what is, or how to calculate this del f del x? So you see, whenever we try to calculate del f del x, that means the derivative of f, or the partial derivative of f with respect to x, you see the contribution should come, or contribution can come from all the three parts, because this u is functions of x and y, v is again a function of x and y, w is again so. So all the three things have some contribution from x. So whenever we talk about this partial derivative, that means we are taking the derivative of the function f, or the partial derivative of the function f with respect to x. We are checking the contribution, or you have to check the contribution from all the three parts. So how to check the contribution of each of the part? So for this part u, what will be the contribution here? Just go the previous slide and you see the contribution was this thing. This is del df or ddu of f into del u del x. The same thing will be there with a little difference. That little difference will be this thing. Why the difference will be there? Because now the function f is a function of more than one independent variable. So since the function f is, or it becomes function of more than one independent variable, so the du of f will not be possible here, right? So we have to change that to del u of f. So previously the function f was a function of single variable, single independent variable u only. So we have written there du of f. But now since the function f becomes function of more than one independent variables, so we just change the du of f to del u of f. So this contribution will be there from this part, and another contribution can come through this part. Just write this part again, just change u to v and write everything the same. That is del v, and this is also that, right, for w. So this will be del f del w into del x of w. So this is the chain rule of finding the partial derivative of the function f with respect to x, where that function f is of more than one independent variables u, v, w. Here in this case 3. So and all the three independent variables are again functions of two independent variables x and y. So this is how we can find del f del x. And if I ask you what is del f del y, is again exactly same. You just replace this x by y and you are done. So this becomes del f del u del y, and this is and the last part is w del w del y. So in this way you can find out the partial derivatives of the function f with respect to x and y through the chain rule. So remember, f is a function of more than one independent variables, and each independent variable is a function of two independent variables x and y. This is the case. You can write the chain rule in this way. So now if u v w, it can be function of more than two independent variables, like here you have taken x and y, it can be x, y, z, t, many more things can be there. So you can define del f del x, del f del y, or other things, del f del z, or maybe del f del t. So all the functions involved here, or all the independent variables actually involved here, you can find out the derivative, that the partial derivative of the function f with respect to those variables. And I think you can very easily extend this definition for more than two independent variables. Here I have taken only two independent variables x and y, ultimately two independent variables x and y, but I think you can at once extend in this way in the downwards, and also I think you can extend in this way, because I have taken the function f to be a function of three variables, three u v w. It can be other, there can be other functions can be there. So you can the other things will be added like this multiplying thing. You just add those contributions. So you just add those contributions for other variables if they are ready, and you can extend these definitions in this way, the horizontal way, and even in the vertical way. While this u v w, it can be functions of more than two independent variables. So this is a simple thing, and I think you used to do this thing. So this is the basic thing. So now I can move on, or this thing. So in this case, this is a very trivial case, like if assume f to be a function of three independent variables u v w, and this u v w, they are all independent variables, and they are all functions, actually functions, basically they are all functions of x only. So what will be the case? Since u v w, they are functions of x only, so f is basically a function of three independent variables or three independent functions, like three not exactly independent functions we can say, but f is a function of three variables like u v w, but this u v w, they are all functions of x only. So ultimately if the function f becomes the function of single variable, you see, since u is a function of x, you can write this way, vx and wx. So you see the function f, it becomes function of single variable x. So if I ask you what is del f del x, the thing will not be like that, because you can write this as df dx. Why df dx? Because you see f becomes function of single variable only single independent variable x. There are no other variable involved. So you can write in this in the place of del x of f, you can write ddx of f. And what is the value of ddf? Sorry, ddx of f is a very simple thing. You have to just calculate the contributions here from each of the things. So while calculating, you have to take you have to calculate first from the part this. So how you can calculate this thing? This is very simple. This is del f del u into del u del x plus, then you have to calculate the contributions from this part, which will be del f del v into del v del x, and again you have to consider this del f del w into del w del x. Now one thing, I think this is clear, but there is one slight problem here. So the problem is like this. You see that u, v and w, they're all functions of single variable. So whenever we talk about single variable or function of single variable, the derivative we take, it is not the partial derivative but the normal derivative. This thing you should keep it in your mind, that whenever I'm writing in this way, so actually this writing this thing is not proper. So you should write in this way, ddx of u, not the del x of u, because u itself is a function of single variable. So since we are talking single variable thing, no point of writing del x of u. It should be ddx of u. The similar kind of thing goes here. This will be this thing, and obviously this thing will be this. So this is the slight corrections. You have to adjust this thing for this reason. And why it is not ddu of f but del u of f? Because since you see that f is a function of three functions, actually three variables, so more than one. So that's why we are writing del u of f, or here del v of f, or del w of f. So just keep it in your mind. Whenever there are more than one variables involved, you just take the, while taking derivative, you should take the partials one, and whenever there is only one variable involved, only one independent variable involved, and you are taking derivatives with respect to that, derivative we should take should be normal derivative. If you keep it in mind, these three results will be trivial to you, or the three chain rules will be trivial to you. There will be no problem of understanding. So I think this thing is clear. So now I will move on to the idea of total differential. So this total differential thing I have introduced in your function of single variable thing. This actually this del y, you have to write this thing, this epsilon delta x plus a delta x things. If you remember, this epsilon is a very small number which lies between there, and obviously epsilon tends to 0 as this delta x tends to 0. This thing is called the total differential of the dependent variable. And likewise this thing, this a delta x part, this a delta x part can be you can write in this way. So actually, so this delta y, and another thing is so this epsilon lies between 0 to 1, and epsilon is very small number which goes to 0 as delta x tends to 0. And another thing which I was talking, that this delta x, you can replace this, since x is an independent variable. I can show you, or I have shown you, that this delta x you can replace through dx. So delta x you can replace via del dx, but this delta y is not exactly the delta y. This is not the case that delta y is dy. So this part a delta x is called, this part is called the differential part. So this part is the differential part, and this part actually is defined as a differential of the independent variable. Because the total differential means, since in this case in the function of several variables we have more than one independent variables, so that differential part can be, or it can have contributions from other independent variable also. Okay, So let's see what happens in a function of more than one variables here. You see this. So this is a function of two variables we take, and let's assume this is a function of t variables, and let's see that z equals to fxy. So now what we are going to do, we just give increment of the independent variable like this. That means we are taking an increment of the amount del x of the independent variable. Okay, since in this case we have two independent variables, so we also take small increment of the other variables too. You see, this y was your dependent variable, not the independent variable, but in the function of more than one variable, function of several variables things, these x, y, and all these things, they are function of, or they are actually independent variables. Here the dependent variable is this z thing, the z. So if you take the, or this amount of difference, or this kind of increment of the independent variables, so the function goes to this of, or the, if you check the functional value, you just calculate this thing. So now what you are doing, so actually this functional value will not be the z value. So z is the functional value at xy. So now you have taken an increment of these two independent variable via amount del x and del y. So this functional value changes to this value, and this thing we can write as z plus delta z. So you can assume that this functional value is exactly the functional value at the point xy plus there's maybe some changes, and that change is depicted by this delta x. Okay, so in pictorial form, this is your xy, and you move on to del x plus delta x and y plus delta y to another point. You are checking the functional value at that point. This is functional value x fxy, and the functional value at that point is this x plus delta x, y plus delta y, and you assume that functional value at xy to be z, and functional value at this point it's like z plus delta z. That's the thing I am going to explain, or I am explaining this thing only. So now what thing you will do, you are going to take or express this increment of the dependent variable. This increment can be expressed in this way. This thing. So previously in the function of single variable, we have only this part and this part. Now these two parts are added because they are contributions from other independent variables. So you see, or if you remember this a thing, this a, actually a, if you remember, I don't know if you remember or not, this a is nothing but the derivative dy dx. It can be proved, as I have told you that. So this part will be, a will be dy dx and delta x is dx. So dy dx into dx is nothing but dy. So actually this thing happens, and for the function of more than one variable, you see that this part is there, this part is there. So no problem with that, and these two parts are added for other independent variables, no problem with that. So just two parts are sandwiched or added together. And since in that case, actually in the previous case, you have used that a is equals to dy dx, but in this case, since there are more than one independent variable, so you have to take the partial derivatives. Actually, you are taking the partial derivatives with respect to x and partial derivatives with respect to y. So actually I can write one line for your this thing. You will understand it better. So this thing, and this A becomes del f del x, and this B is nothing but del f del y. So now I think you can understand it properly. And this epsilon and epsilon 2, these two things, obviously, like previous one, they all lies between 0 to 1, and this actually they goes to 0. Actually they are very small number, and actually they goes to 0 as del x and del y tends to 0. So I should also write that epsilon 1 goes to 0 and epsilon 2 goes to 0 as delta x non delta y goes to 0. So this thing happens, and actually this is the definition of finding total differential. So this is the total differential of the dependent variable, and it can be expressed in this way. So this thing, actually this part, you have to consider this part and this part. So this is particular thing which actually we call the differential part. That means you have this kind of expression del f del x into del x plus del f del y into del y plus epsilon 1 delta x plus epsilon 2 delta y. So you see, we take this part to be dz, or you can write df also, no problem. You just write df. So df, where actually z equals to actually this function of xy, you know. So this part, so this part is called the differential of z, or the total differential. Differential of z. Okay, but we do a certain change. What's the certain change? We just replace this delta x by dx, and we just replace this delta y by dy, as we have done in the previous function of single variable case. We just replaced the delta x by dx for function of, or for independent variables. You remember we have replaced that thing. So for independent variable, you can replace that delta x and delta. Here y is another independent variable, so we can write delta x and delta y to be dx and dy. So you can write this thing for independent variables, but not for dependent variables. That means you can't write this thing. This thing is not possible. You can write, you can see, because you see, for this definition, or from this definition, the thing becomes, if you write that the left hand side there was delta z, and this thing is called the total differential. Sorry. So this thing is called total differential, and this thing actually we write, or we can write in this way. There are terms like this. This thing is called the error terms. So you can't replace del z by dz. There are error terms there involved. So for the, and you see what is z? Z is nothing but dependent variables. Dependent variable. So again, I am saying that whenever you see any independent variable, you can write del x, or the variable, if the variable be y, independent variable, you can write del y to be del x. That means you can write in this way, just it is an equality. So not the inequality but just equality, but in this case you can't write because z is a dependent variable. So this thing you should clear that this thing you do, and this part is actually is called the differential of z, and in general you can write it to be is equals to dz or df, this whole thing. So dz is equals to del f del x into dx plus del f del y into dy. So this thing dz is equals to del f del x into dx plus del f del y into dy. So if you remember, for the function of single variable, the case was like this: dy, so dy is equals to dy dx into dx in the function of single variable, and for the function of more than one variable, this thing happens. Okay, so you see there is little difference because we are using the partial derivatives here, because more than one independent variables are there, and we just add their contributions individually, and this thing becomes the total differential of the independent variable z. So another, this thing you should keep it in mind, and another thing I am repeating again and again, that in the function of more than one variable we are taking this x and y to be independent variables, but you see for the function of single variable, this x is independent variable but this y is not independent, but it is a dependent variable. You just notice it. So this is the idea of total differential of the dependent variable. So now I am going to show you two results, actually two theorems which are provided by Euler. So Euler's theorem, but before going into Euler's theorem, let me introduce what is meant by homogeneous function. So as far as I remember, homogeneous function. So as far as I remember, that I have talked with you homogeneous function in the extension lectures I've given some days back, that in the differential equations. So I talked with you what is the idea of homogeneous functions. I guess you don't remember those things, so it's very good to talk again about homogeneous functions, but this time you should keep it in your mind that what is meant by homogeneous function. So homogeneous function means, let's you have a function and this is a function f is like this. It can have more than one or more than one independent variables. So see, f is a function of, I am taking three independent variables x, y, and t. Now, how to check whether f is homogeneous or not? It's a very simple thing. You just replace this x, y, and t by some constant into that variable. That means you just replace x by alpha x, y by alpha y, and t by alpha t. You just replace the whole functions and you just calculate the expression, and from the calculation, if you can simplify out that this becomes, or this thing becomes alpha to the power n f of x, y, and t, then we say the function f is a homogeneous function of degree n. Okay, this is the degree. So homogeneous function of degree n means you just replace the independent variables by, or x by alpha x, y by alpha y, t by alpha t. If there are other independent variables, then do in the same way, and just you just check the expression and simplify that expression, and from the expression you can, if you can write this thing in this way, so the function will be function is said to be a degree n, homogeneous function of degree n. For example, so you need to have example, without that it will not be good to understand. So this two variable function we can take. You can take this kind of functions. You see, whenever I just replace x by alpha x and y by alpha y, what happens? So it becomes this thing happens. Now from this thing, I think you can write, or you can simplify in this way. So now see this, the last part, the function is there, it you are getting back the function itself. So the thing is root of alpha into f of xy. So you see the root of alpha means alpha to the power half. So f is a homogeneous function of degree half. I think it's clear. You just put alpha x in place of x and alpha y in place of y. Just put it here, simplify out, and you see you are getting back the function itself here and a constant, and that constant is actually that alpha to the power something. This is alpha to the power half. Root alpha means alpha to the power half. So as I said, that is the power of alpha represents the degree of homogeneity. So f is a homogeneous function of degree n. So this is the simplest case, and I think I can give you another example which you can check that what is the case when such thing happens. X cube plus y cube. So check and do tell me so that what is the if function is homogeneous or not, and if it is homogeneous, then what is the degree. You just calculate and to tell me, and just this task, do your home. So if you understand this homogeneous function, the idea of homogeneous function, then I can move on to write or express what is Euler's theorem. And this theorem is very much important because there are actually two Euler's theorem, and these two theorems do come in your exam. And actually you don't have to prove the theorem, but you have to apply those theorems. So the number one, so this is an Euler theorem, first order Euler's theorem. So both are the I'm going to talk actually two theorems, theorem 1 and theorem 2. Both theorems are given by Euler. The first one, or this theorem 1 is first order Euler theorem, which tells you that if x, y, z is a function, or this is a particular type of function, this is a homogeneous function. Homogeneous function of degree n. So it is said that f is a, or it is given, or if some function f is given, you have to check whether this is a homogeneous function, and then if it is homogeneous, then what is its degree. So this thing you have to check. So if you can check this thing, and how to check this thing, that I have told you. So you are given the function f, and you have to check whether the function is homogeneous or not. If it is homogeneous, what is its degree. So if you know, or if you have these informations, then Euler's theory, or Euler's first order Euler's theorem, tells you that this x del f del x plus y del f del y plus z del f del z, this expression you can write it in this way, n into f x y z. That means this kind of relation is satisfied. So you can check that the functions I have taken earlier, that f of xy is root x plus root y, you see f is a homogeneous function of degree half. So for this function, if you apply Euler's theory, it becomes this thing. Half of f, or you can write in place of f, you can write root x plus root y. So this is example. So for that function, this thing happens. So now, whenever you see such kind of problems in your exam, so or in your book, that prove this, f is a function and prove this. So you, what thing we will do? Are you going to calculate this whole thing? Yes, you can calculate. You can find out what is del f del x, because so, oh, another thing is that this actually this part will not be there, because f is a function of x and y only. So this thing will not be there. This thing del f del z, the contributions will not be there. You will just have these two things. So okay, just that thing, the thing I was going to talk, that if you do calculate this thing, what is del f del x, and you can calculate, and you can also calculate what is del f del y. F is a function given, f is a function which is root x plus root y, and you can at once calculate what is del f del x and what is del f del y. You can do simplifications, and after simplification, and I think you will easily find out that you can this left hand side you can simplify out, and you will get this thing. No problem in that. But without going into calculations, just by using Euler's first order theorem, you can conclude this. This is the power of Euler theorem. So without going into calculations like this, finding the partial derivative del f del x, del f del y, all these things, just multiply them by x and multiply it by y, and just do the simplification thing, and you will get. You will obviously get this thing, but you don't have to do this. You just apply a function. You have a function. You just check whether the function is homogeneous or not, and if it is homogeneous, what is its degree of homogeneity, and you just write the conclusion of the Euler's theorem, and you will at once write this thing. You don't have to even calculate out this thing. Okay, so this is the power of homogeneous Euler's theorem for homogeneous functions. So now we can move on to the theorem 2, which is again a kind of similar theorem. So this theorem is again for homogeneous function, if homogeneous function of degree n. So for this function, homogeneous function, you can also write that x del del x plus y del del y plus z del del z. This is an operator which is applied on this thing, and you will get this thing f. So this thing you will get. So before describing this theorem, let me clear you this notation. So what is meant by this thing? So without clearing these notations, I think you will not be able to understand. So this square of f. So you see, we are using just del del x, del del y, del del z. There is no functions involved here, or here. The function is written outside. So actually, this thing is an operator. So it's like kind of operator, like you see this sine kind of thing. So sine is there. You have heard sine x cos x. The sine, actually sine is there, and this acts as theta. So now, but there is a square involved here. So actually there are two functions, two operator part. There are two parts here. Number one here and number two here, and this is it. So whenever calculating, or what is meant by this square f is like this thing, you just write this thing twice. That means for your For the clarity, just write the whole thing. Things will be clear. Del del y plus del del z x del del x plus y del del y plus z del del z over f. So now this square means these two operators are side by side and f is there. So whatever we are going to do is you just apply this operator over f. So things become this x del del x plus y del del y and z del del z. So if you apply this operator over f, this thing become x del f del x plus y del f del y and z del f del z. So this thing is, I think, is clear. This function f, you just apply this operator over f. That means this you apply this over f, this over f, and this over f, and the result will you can add, and you will have this result. So this result, this is actually a function. If you calculate, this thing is actually a function. This is a new function like h, and now what you will do, just you have to find this del h del x plus y del h del y and z del h del z. And now if I ask that if you simplify out this thing, that means you put this whole expression here in place of h, then you have to simplify out this x del del x of this thing, y del del y of this thing, and z del del z of this thing, and then you just add the whole things and you just simplify out this thing. Then what you will get? So that means I am talking about you have x del del x of h. H means actually this thing. This. Now again there are another this term, and again such thing will be there. X del f del x plus y del f del y and z del f del z. Other terms there like z del del z. Again there are h, so this h is just replaced by this whole thing, y del f del y plus z del f del z. So these three things are there. এখানে যদি কোনো কারো প্রবলেম থাকে, কেউ যদি বুঝতে না পারিস বারবার বলবি। খুব সিম্পল থিং, এইভাবে আমরা জিনিসটাকে অপারেট করি। দিস ইজ হাউ উই অপারেট দ্য হোল থিং। সো this thing, if you just remove all brackets and just apply this thing, that means whenever you are calculating this whole thing, I am doing one calculation for you. You see x is there, x is multiplied here, it will not affect, but while applying del del x of over this thing, you see this is a product term, this is a product term, so you just apply our x keeping this constant, and another time we just apply over this del f del x and keep x to be constant, so you will get two terms. The number one term will be you just take the derivative of x with respect to del del x of x, that will become 1, and you will have this del f del x, and another time whenever you are taking over here, this x will be constant, so it, and this thing will be del 2f del x2. So for this thing you will get these two terms. Now if you going to apply this del del x of del del x over here, since you are doing the derivative with respect to x partially, this actually this y thing is constant, so you are doing derivative only over this thing, and we will get y del 2f del x del y, only single term, and from the last part you will get also another single term like del del x del z. So the bracket, this bracket, and if you apply this partial derivative with respect to x, this bracket will be, you can simply, or you can expand in this way, and x is multiplied over all the things because this x is there, so you can multiply x all the terms, and likewise you can also simplify out this bracket and this bracket, and you can also simplify out this bracket, and after simplifying out this thing, you can get the whole expression. So what is the full expression you can get? So that full expression is given to be n into n minus 1 of f. So you see, this is a long expression. So for your convenience, I am doing this thing. So if I simplify out this thing, this bracket, you will have this y will be there. So you are applying del y over this thing. So since you are doing the partial derivative with respect to y, x is constant. So x is constant, you will get del 2f del x del y. And for this term, you are doing partial derivative with respect to y, but since y is already involved, you will get from this two term. One is y del 2f del y2, y is y del 2f del y2, and another term you will get del f del y, and for the last term you will get z del 2f del y del z. So one more thing you have to keep it in your mind, that we are considering the continuity of all the partial derivatives. That means we are not differentiating del x del y or del y del x. That means we are taking this del 2f del x del y to be equal to del 2f del y del x or such kind of things. That means we are taking the commutativity like kind of derivatives. So this part is coming from this part, this from this part, this is coming, and the last part, for the last part you are going to get this thing, z del z del z over this thing. It will give del 2f del x del z. The second term will give you del 2f del y del z. So I'm just missing, I think I am missing one thing, one term. This is x will be there, some y will be there. Okay, so and from the last term you will get this z del 2z del 2f del z2. Two terms you will get z del 2f del z2 plus another term will be there, which is del f del z. So you see, from each bracket we are getting four terms. So from each bracket we are getting two terms, maybe four terms, and the two terms are coming from this part, from this part, from this part. Okay, other two terms giving the single term. So now you have to simplify out this. Actually there are 12 terms involved, so you have to simplify out this thing. So this is basically, if you can calculate, this will be nothing but this kind of thing: a del 2f del x2 plus b del 2f del y2 plus c del 2f del z2 plus something like del 2f del x del y plus e del 2f del x del z plus f del 2f del y del z plus g del f del x plus h del f y plus h I del f del z equals to, suppose like k. So this 336 plus 9 plus the 9 terms, actually they are involved here, if you see. So all such kinds of terms are there, and actually so you see those four terms. So actually, this left hand side, this terms, and the right hand side, this thing will be 0 basically, and such kind of thing will be there. You can calculate what is coming there. You can, I think you can calculate this thing. It's a very simple calculation. You just see this is the del 2 of del x2, and this coefficient is x square, and there are no terms del 2 of del x2 in here. So this del 2 of del 2 x2, this coefficient is x square, and the coefficient of del 2f del y2, actually I think it should come from this. Oh, actually, this is the term. This coefficient is y square, this y into y, that means y square, and del 2 of del z2 comes from here. This, its coefficient is z square. So if you simplify out, this a is basically x square, this b is y square, and c will be z square. Now, how to calculate del 2f del x del y? It's very simple. You see, del 2f del x del y, is coming here. Its coefficient is x and y, and another del 2f del x del y is coming from here. Its coefficient is another xy, so it becomes 2xy. So this d will be 2xy. Likewise, if you check, this e will be 2xz, and this f will be 2iz. It's very simple to check. And now, what is the coefficient of del f del x? So you see, del f del x is coming here, from here. This is x. This coefficient is x, and you see del f del x term you will not find elsewhere. So its coefficient is x. So this g will be x, h will be y, and this I will be z, and this k will be 0, nothing but 0. So this is the whole expression. Actually, I have calculated for you, and you can do it freshly, and you will see the whole expression yourself. And the problem comes there, like you have to show this kind of expression, and if you do it straightforward without doing applying Euler's theorem, things will be very, very difficult. But if you apply Euler's theorem, things will be very, very easier. So this is the second order Euler theorem which I have talked to you. This is how we can calculate such kind of. And now I I'll do just one thing, that how to find. Actually, I have not given the example, but today I'm just going to give you one example about on how to find the limits. So this is an example. So this is the example of this kind of functions, limit xy 0 0 and 2xy kind of thing. So this limit, you are asked to show whether this limit exists or not. This is the simple example. Is not from Euler's theorem that I have talked. Is from the limit idea which I have talked last day. So this is an example of checking the limit. This is a simultaneous limit, not the repeated limit. Repeated limits is written like first x goes to 0, then y goes to 0, or reversely. But this is, you see that x comma y goes to 0 0. That means it's the simultaneous limit, and this is the given function. So how to check whether this limit exists or not? And I have told you that this is the way you should be accustomed with. Actually, this is the way we actually do the problems on limit continuity in a function of more than one variable. That is, we actually take some path, say y equals to mx, and I see actually I think you can remember that y equals to mx is it's not a, but actually is a family of straight lines. That means if you just manipulate m, or you just put values of m, you will get straight lines. So for example, if you put the value of m to be 1, this is m. you are not, this is mx. So if you just put m value of m is to be 1, you will get y equals to x. If you put m to be 2, you will get y equals to 2x. So basically y equals to mx is a general equation of straight line, and general equation of family of straight lines. And you see, this is a particular type of straight line where I am not considering that class C part is not there. So that means this expression or this straight line is passing through origin. So this is the equation of all straight line, like this is the origin passing through origin, obviously. So this is problematic. So such kind of straight lines, all kind of straight lines which are passing through this origin, they can be summarized through this from y equals to mx. And see why I am taking y equals to mx, this kind of straight line. So you see that we are approaching towards the point 0, 0. So via this straight line, actually we can approach origin. So whenever x goes to 0, you see y is 0. So this thing is satisfied. So the 0, 0 point you can approach via this straight line, since the this point 0, 0 lies over the straight line. So this thing you can at once check, and this lines gives you, actually they are family of straight lines, and they'll give you many directions to the origin you can choose. And we just put over here and simplify out the thing. This 2xi x square plus y square, what will be that thing? So if you just put in place of y, you just put mx, this thing will be like this. And if you can simplify out, this becomes 2m 1 plus m square. It all 2m divided by 1 plus m square. So you see that if you choose this y equals to mx straight line to be this straight line, I guess this may be, you can take y equals to 1 into x, but that means value of m to be 1. So you see the value will be 2 into 1 divided by 1 plus 1 square, that means 2. Now for this line, the value of m will be different. So you can take like y equals to this may be 2 into x, like this kind of thing. Okay, so for this straight line, this value will be 2 into 2, that means 4, divided by 1 plus 2 square, that means 5. So the value will be so whenever the value of m will be 1, this value will be 1. So whenever the value of m will be 2, the value of this thing will be 4 by 5. So you see, whenever we are taking different straight line, this value is changing. This value is changing. And what is the value? Exactly what is the value means? This value exactly means the limit as x tends to 0. This is actually, we are taking this kind of thing, this limit x tends to 0. So because this x square or x tends to 0 also means y tends to 0, that means through this straight line you are approaching 0. Okay, so you are approaching 0 via this straight line, or you are approaching 0 via this straight line. You see the value depends on m. So whatever value you check or you take, and that value will depend on m, and it will come differently. So if you change your path, the value of the limit will be different, and it suggests that value or the simultaneous limit does not exist. So for the existence of simultaneous limit, you have to have the same limit via every path. So we are cleverly taking a path which is y equals to mx, a straight line, actually not a straight line but a family of straight lines, and through those straight lines, if you check what will be the limit, you are getting the value of limit which is dependent on m. So that means whenever you choose a particular path, you will get a particular value of the limit. So this suggests that the limit does not exist. So in this way, we actually encounter the problems of limit continuity this way. So we just choose a path and check whether this exists or not. And whenever the existence cannot be shown through this procedure, because this kind of procedure is fruitful whenever the problem is if you at once actually you have to practice more and more problems to check to understand the limit exists or not, because this kind of procedure we do generally apply for the problems where the limit does not exist. If it is exist or if it exists, then we can't do in this way, because overall we see we are taking some straight lines. Okay, even if it does not depend on m, you can't see anything, you can't say anything, because you are just taking only straight lines. It can be there, maybe can be any other path, there can be some carved path also, so you are not taking or you are not considering this thing. Okay, so see why for some proof we have to be conclusive over all paths, but to disprove you have to give one example, and that's sufficient. Okay, this thing you just keep it in your mind. So this procedure actually we are taking here, we are taking a particular path, actually not particular but a particular kind of path. Actually there are many paths, and you see or you see that the value depends on m. So whenever for whatever path we choose, you choose, the value will come different. That means there is a dependence on path, and so that's why the limit does not exist. So I am stressing on this point that even if this limit, you see, even if this limit comes that there is no dependence on the value of m, like it for limit calculate quizzes, in after calculating the limit you are getting this 4 it may be the case some for some paths. So this does not imply that this limit exists, because you are taking a particular kind of path, you are not considering all kinds of path. There can be other carved path also. So this procedure, I am again stressing that this procedure is sufficient only for disproving the limit, or actually disproving the existence of limit. Okay, so whenever the limit exists, you can't do this in way do in this way, and you have to go through the definition, you have to take the definitions. Okay, so that epsilon delta definitions you have to take, and only through that definition you can prove this thing. And one problem actually one type of problem come, and this is one type of problem. And actually this y equals to mx, this thing can be you check many problems in your book that this is the standard procedure. There can be some variations of the path for the sake of problem, for the sake of simplification of the problem. Sometimes you will see y equals to m square x, or such kind of there are some slight modifications are there. So you have to understand that this kind of modifications for the sake of the problem, and this kind of actually this kind of paths are only taken for equations which you have an idea that the limit does not exist. So there can be some path like y equals to x minus mx cube. Such kind of paths I think you will encounter different problems in your book. So these are all kind of functions, all kind of functions of those functions. So for the existence part, and some functions like if you check this example, that fxy to be x plus y sine 1 by x whenever x not equals to 0, and this to be 0, x is 0. So in this case you are asked to check whether, no, not whether, but you are asked to check that this limit is exactly 0. So it is guaranteed that limit exists, but you have to check. That means you have to check it via definition, that the epsilon delta definitions. That means you have to calculate this limit and this modulus you have to calculate, and for this, from this modulus you have to actually, if you see, this modulus can be written actually not but equals to y plus sine 1 by x, and this thing you have to put, or you have to make it less than epsilon whenever this x and y lies some region delta. Actually this epsilon is p chosen, and you have to find some delta, find some delta for which this thing is less than epsilon, that is this thing is less than epsilon whenever x and y lies in the neighborhood of delta, around delta neighborhood of 0. So this thing is basically, you can write, or you have to take such kind of inequality, you have to consider such kind of inequality that mod of a plus b is less equals to mod a into mod b. This kind of thing you have to consider. Now this thing you can write in this way, because you see this, that sine 1 by x is a bounded function. That's why the value of sine x, sine 1 by x will always lies between, or is always less than equals to 1. So that's why this relation, or this thing can be written is less than equals to y. So mod x will be there and mod y will be there. So now whenever this mod x lies here, that means whenever this mod x, or mod x means actually x minus 0, lies there, sorry, epsilon by 2, and this thing also happens that y minus 0 lies here, that this thing will become less than equals to epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2, that means epsilon. So this fxy minus 0 is less than epsilon whenever this mod of x minus 0 is less equals to epsilon by 2, and mod of y minus 0 is also less equals to epsilon by 2, and this epsilon by 2 is your delta. This is your delta. So whenever mod x is lying in 0 to delta and y is lying 0 to delta, that fxy minus 0 is less equals to epsilon. So this is your epsilon delta definitions of existence of limit. So that's why the limit exists. So, and what is the value of delta? So delta is basically, you are checking from the problem, just going to simplify out this thing, and you are getting that delta is equals to actually epsilon by 2, or delta can be any value which is less than epsilon by 2, and any value which is less than epsilon by 2 will be good. So this is how you can prove that limit exists. So this is the definition of limit in the function of several, for the function of several variables, where you are getting actually this region actually you are giving some rectangular region, where this rectangular region is surrounded around 0, and this is the delta square, that shall not delta, length of delta, the length of the side is delta. So if you just take or draw such picture, that you see the x is lying between 0 to delta, the mod value of x is lying between 0 to delta, that means x lies here. Okay, so x is lying between minus delta to plus delta, this thing, and similarly y is lying between minus delta to plus delta. So you see this is your region. So this is the rectangular region around 0, not 0 but 0 0, since we are in the plane, this is the 0 0 point. So this is the rectangular region for which such kind of inequality is holding. So that's why it's a limit holds. So there are other kinds of problem. I think many problems are solved in your book. You can check any book, or your Pal Chatterjee book. So you will see many problems are there, and they solve many problems with exercise, and go through the problems, and do also check some problems from your exercises also, and do those things. I think this completes our journey in function of several variables, and things actually which are left only, they are actually the Taylor's theorem part, and I guess some parts maybe of L'Hopital rule, maybe if Sir hasn't covered that thing. So I think if he has covered the thing, then I have only the Taylor's theorem, actually expansions of some functions, the Taylor theorem and Taylor series, basically two things there. So these things are only there for the next class. So that's all for function of several variable things, and do some problems. And actually you have to be careful in actually we have to do more and more problems on limit and continuity things, and obviously this thing will make you clear and how to uh, take those paths. So basically this thing actually is a little different thing, actually particular kind of thing which we actually do in function of several variables, and actually as a little different thing, because such kind of epsilon and delta definitions were there in function of single variable also. This thing is not new, but that taking path and by taking path showing that the limit does not exist on the continuity, that the function is not continuous, such kind of things is a little bit new. And obviously do some practice on those Euler's theorem, Euler's first and second theorem, because you will see many more problems, many large problems. You have to apply those Euler theorem, because without applying those Euler theorem, things will be not easy. And again, another part, another aspect that or another aspect of the problems which I am talking, that mixed derivatives thing. That means I talked with you that Schwarz theorem, I can remember. So that Schwarz theorem part, or the way of calculating the partial derivatives, you have to do some calculation, or you have to do some practice, some problems on partial derivatives, because there will be some problems like so that this mixed derivative is not equals to the mixed derivative, like at the point, this kind of problems. So you have given some functions and you have to show that the mixed derivative they are not equal at some point. So for this kind of problem, you have to calculate those mixed derivative, and how to calculate those mixed derivatives. Then you have to apply the definition of derivative. The derivative means partial derivatives. So go through the definitions of partial derivatives and the problems which are solved in your books, and if you can't do some problem, then show me, obviously I'll solve for you. So এর মধ্যে আর কিছু কারো বলার আছে বল তাহলে। এর মধ্যে কিছু যদি বলার থাকে বলে ফেল, এখানে আপাতত একদম শেষ করবো। তাহলে কোন অংশটা জিজ্ঞাসা করার থাকলে কর।
স্যার বলছি যে আমাদের ম্যাথের প্র্যাকটিক্যাল হবে।
প্র্যাকটিক্যাল? কিসের প্র্যাকটিক্যাল? ম্যাথের আবার প্র্যাকটিক্যাল কোথায়?
ম্যাথের প্র্যাকটিক্যাল মানে প্রজেক্ট হবে কি?
না না, প্রজেক্ট কিছু নেই।
তাহলে মানে কত নম্বরের এক্সাম হবে? 70 নম্বরের?
না, 50 নম্বরের।
50 নম্বরের?
হ্যাঁ 50 নম্বরের হবে, আর 25 নম্বর হচ্ছে ইন্টারনাল। বেসিক্যালি এখন তো সবটাই ইন্টারনাল। আগে নর্মাল সিচুয়েশন যখন ছিল, প্যান্ডেমিক ছিল না যখন, তখন 75 নম্বরই পরীক্ষা হতো। সিস্টেম ছিল এরকম, 25 নম্বর ইন্টারনাল, 50 নম্বর এক্সটার্নাল। এটা হচ্ছে সিস্টেম ছিল। এক্সটার্নাল বলতে এক্সটার্নাল কোনো অন্য কলেজে যেমন হয়, যেমন নর্মাল পরীক্ষা সামনে হতো। 20 নম্বর ইন্টারনাল, 25 নম্বর ইন্টারনালের মধ্যে 5 নম্বর অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স ছিল, আর বাকি 20 নম্বরের মধ্যে জেনারেলি একটা পার্ট আসতো অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট থেকে, আর একটা পার্ট আসতো তোর ইন্টারনাল থেকে। ইন্টারনাল এভালুয়েশন মানে ধর আমি যেমন তোদের একটা পরীক্ষা দিয়েছিলাম, ওই টাইপের যে পরীক্ষা, সেই টাইপের, মানে 10 5 25 নম্বর। এখন সিস্টেমটা তো চেঞ্জ হয়ে গেছে। এখন ওই 25 নম্বরটা ভাগ রয়েছে 20+5। 20+5 বলতে 5 নম্বর অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স, যেখানে 5 দেওয়ার নোটিশ এসছে। সুতরাং ক্লাস করিস কি না করিস, আনন্দেই থাক, 5 নম্বর পাচ্ছিস। কারণ এই মুহূর্তে প্যান্ডেমিক সিচুয়েশনে ক্লাস কে করছে কে না করছে তাই মাপকাঠি নেই কোনো। ইভেন আমি তো লক্ষ্য করছি, তুমি তো একজন কেউ আজ যে খাতা মতো জমা দিয়েছিল, কি মেয়েটি তো বোধহয় ক্লাস করেই না। যাই হোক, তো কিন্তু নম্বর 5-এ 5 রয়েছে, দিতে হবে। আর আরেকটি ব্যাপার হচ্ছে 20 নম্বর হচ্ছে পুরোটাই ইন্টারনাল, যেটা পরীক্ষা নিয়েছি অলরেডি। একটা পরীক্ষা তোদেরকে নিয়েছিলাম, সেই পরীক্ষায় যে নম্বরটা হচ্ছে তো সেটা থেকে 20 নম্বর যাবে। 20 মধ্যে কতটা পেয়েছিস সেটা যাবে। আর বাকিটা হচ্ছে তোর আমাদের যেটা পরীক্ষা হতে চলেছে সামনে, 50 নম্বরের পরীক্ষা হতে চলেছে। সেই 50 নম্বরে আগে খাতা বাইরে যেত, এক্সটার্নাল হতো সেই হিসাবে, কিন্তু এই সিচুয়েশনে এক্সটার্নাল হচ্ছে না, ওই খাতা আমিই দেখবো। মানে কলেজে খাতা দেখবো, মানে তোদের খাতা আমি দেখবো। সেই জন্য তোদের খাতা আমার কাছেই সাবমিট হবে পরীক্ষার দিন। এবং পরীক্ষার যে জেনারেল গাইডলাইন্স আমি তোদেরকে দিয়ে দিয়েছি, তোরা দরকার ওটা ভালো করে পড়ে দেখ কি বলেছে। কিছুই না, সিম্পল ব্যাপার, কতক্ষণ আগে খাতা জমা দেওয়া হবে, এই খাতা দেওয়া হবে, কোশ্চেন কতক্ষণ আগে দেওয়া হবে, আর খাতা জমা কতক্ষণে দেওয়া যাবে, বা কখন দিবি, কতক্ষণের মধ্যে দিবি, কটার মধ্যে দিবি, কখন সকালের আবার মানে মর্নিং সেশনে পরীক্ষা হলে কখন খাতা জমা দিতে হবে, পরের সেশনে মানে দুটো না পরের যে পরীক্ষা সেই সেশনে যদি পরীক্ষা।
ম্যাথ তো দুটো থেকে হবে, সেকেন্ডে
হ্যাঁ,
হবে।
সব অসুবিধা নেই। যখন যেটা বাকি ওটা জেনারেল গাইডলাইন, তাই না, ওটা শুধু ম্যাথস এর উপর ডিপেন্ড করছে না, অন্যান্য সাবজেক্ট গুলো একই রকমই ব্যাপার। যদি মর্নিং
হ্যাঁ,
সেশনে থাকে তাহলে কখন খাতা জমা দিতে হবে তখন, আর পরের সেশনে যদি থাকে তখন কটার মধ্যে খাতা জমা দিতে হবে, এবং কিভাবে খাতা জমা দিতে হবে সবটাই রয়েছে। এবং তোরা যদি অনলাইন সাবমিশন না করতে চাস, তোরা যদি অফলাইনে খাতা জমা দিয়ে যেতে চাস, সেই ব্যবস্থাও রয়েছে, কলেজে খাতা জমা দিয়ে যেতে হবে। সেটাও করতে পারিস, তার জন্য গাইডলাইন রয়েছে, সেখানে লেখা রয়েছে কিভাবে কে জমা দিতে পারবে। আর অনলাইনে যখন পরীক্ষা দিবি, খাতার সাথে কি কি দিতে হবে, খাতার উপরে কি কি লিখতে হবে না লিখতে হবে, সেটা পরিষ্কার করে বলে দেওয়া রয়েছে, নাম, রেজিস্ট্রেশন নাম্বার, এবং খাতার সাথে 1 কপি করে অ্যাডমিট কার্ড অবভিয়াসলি স্ক্যান করতে হবে। বা যদি ফিজিক্যালি এসে জমা দিতে চাস তখন অ্যাডমিট কার্ডের একটা জেরক্স কপি দিতে হবে। আর নর্মালি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ বা ইমেল আইডি, যেটা আমরা এর আগের বারও নিয়েছিলাম, ওই ইমেল আইডি দিয়ে আবার একবার দরকার হলে ইমেল আইডি দিয়ে দেবো। ওই ইমেল আইডিতে বা আমাকে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করে পাঠাতে পারি, তবুও আমি বলবো আমার হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ থেকে আমাকে ইমেলে পাঠানো অনেক বেটার। কারণ আমার কাছে রেকর্ড রাখতে সুবিধা, নাহলে আমাকে আবার বসে বসে ওটাকে আবার ধরে ধরে আমাকে ইমেলে পাঠাতে হয়। চেষ্টা করিস ইমেল যদি না পারিস একান্ত, তখন হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে লাস্টে পাঠাবি, বলার কিছু থাকে না। কিন্তু চেষ্টা করবি যাতে ইমেলে পাঠানো যায়। যদি ইমেল একদমই না জানিস না পারিস, তখন হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে পাঠিয়ে দিবি দাদা। এই হচ্ছে সিস্টেম, ওটাই ওখানে লেখা আছে। এবার এই সিস্টেমে কেউ যদি খুশি না থাকে, এরকম অনলাইন সিস্টেমে, ভবিষ্যতে যখন প্যান্ডেমিক সিচুয়েশন লেটস হোপ ওভার হয়ে যাবে, তখন এই ধরনের এক্সাম গুলোর আরেকবার করার প্রভিশন রাখা হবে, তখন চাইলে অফলাইন এক্সামও পরে দিতে পারিস, মানে এখন অনলাইন এক্সাম না দিয়ে। এইটাই ওখানে লেখা আছে, বুঝেছিস?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে এটার মধ্যে তাহলে কিছু কি বলার আছে? দেখ, আমি আবার বলছি, লিমিট কন্টিনিউটি কি করে করতে হয় অ্যালং দ্য পাথ, এই জিনিসটা তোদের একটু শিখতে হবে। এক্সাম্পল দেখে দেখে 2-4টে এক্সাম্পল দেখবি এবং কতগুলো অঙ্ক হাতে করবি, তাহলে বুঝতে পারবি। পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভ অবভিয়াসলি বের করবি। পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভ অনেক যা অঙ্কে দিয়ে দিতে থাকবে, দেখবি পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভ করে বের করতে। একটা ফাংশন দিয়ে দিয়েছে, ফাইন্ড দ্য পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভস, মানে বলে দিল এফ এফ এক্স এক্স বের করতে, এফ ওয়াই এক্স ওয়াই বের করতে, এফ এক্স ওয়াই বের করতে, এফ ওয়াই আই বের করতে, এই ধরনের দিয়ে বের করতে বললো। তো এইগুলো তোকে, এই ধরনের অঙ্কগুলো তোদেরকে প্র্যাকটিস করতে হবে। হ্যাঁ, কন্টিনিউটি এই প্রবলেম গুলো করতে হবে। অয়েলার্স থিওরেমের এক্সাম্পল করতে হবে, অয়েলার্স থিওরেমের দুটো থিওরেমই করেসপন্ডিং দেখবি কিছু অ্যাপ্লিকেশন আছে, সেই অ্যাপ্লিকেশন গুলো করতে হবে। হ্যাঁ, আর যেটা বললাম, যেটা হচ্ছে সোয়ার্টজ থিওরেমের রিলেটেড, যে মিক্সড পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভ গুলো কোনো পয়েন্টে দেখবি ভ্যালু সমান হচ্ছে না, এটা প্রুফ করতে বললো একটা ফাংশন দিয়ে। খুব কিছু প্রপার প্রবলেম আছে, বেশ পার্টিকুলার কিছু প্রবলেম, যেগুলো প্রত্যেক বছর মাঝে মধ্যে রিপিট হয়। দেখবি এক্সাম্পলে প্রচুর অঙ্ক করে দেওয়া আছে, ওগুলো দেখবি দেখবি একটা করবি, তারপর রিলেটেড প্রবলেম দেখ। যদি কিছু বলার থাকে বা জানার থাকে আবারও বলতে পারিস, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই, নাহলে আজকে শেষ করছি। বলার বলার নেই তো কিছু?
স্যার, পার্শিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভের কিছু প্রবলেম আছে, ওগুলো কি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে পাঠিয়ে দেবো?
পার্সিয়াল ডেরিভেটিভ বুঝতে পারলাম
কিছু
না, বল।
প্রবলেম আছে, মানে পারছি
হ্যাঁ
না আমি।
হ্যাঁ, বলে দিস।
ওগুলো তাহলে গ্রুপে পাঠিয়ে দেবো?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, পাঠিয়ে দিস। এবং মানে আমাকে গোটাটাই করতে হবে না, কিছু হিন্টস দিলে হবে, বা কতটা করতে পেরেছি সেটা যদি আমাকে দিস, আমার সবসময় ভালো হয়। কারণ ধরে ধরে গোটা প্রবলেম করে করাটা খুব ডিফিকাল্ট ব্যাপার, এতগুলো প্রবলেম, বুঝলিস তো। তুমি যদি তো বেটার হয়
হ্যাঁ।
সবসময়, আমি বলছি না এরকম সবসময়, কিন্তু বেটার হয় তুই কতটা করতে পেরেছিস বা কতটা স্টেপ তুই এগোতে পেরেছিস, সেটা হলে আমারও বুঝতে সুবিধা হয় যে সত্যি সত্যি প্রবলেমটা তুই এগোতে পেরেছিস কিনা। নাহলে আরবিটারি প্রবলেম দিয়ে লাভ নেই, তুই আগে নিজে চেষ্টা কর, তুই ভুল কর, তাতেও আমার কোনো অসুবিধা নেই, কিন্তু কতটা করেছিস শ্রমই আমি তোকে তারপর পাঠ দেখিয়ে দেবো, তারপর তুই সেটা করবি। হ্যাঁ, আর যদি কোনো হতে পারে এমন কোনো প্রবলেম হতে পারে তুই অ্যাপ্রোচও করতে পারিস সেটা আলাদা কথা, সেটা আমাকে প্ল্যান করবি।
করেছি হাফটা, কিন্তু মানে প্রমাণ করতে বলেছে ওটা মানে হচ্ছে না, করতে পারছি না।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, যেগুলো পারিস না আমাকে দিস। ঠিক আছে, তাহলে আজকে কি তাহলে এখানে শেষ করছি নাকি? আর প্রবলেম নেই তো কারো কিছু? তাহলে আমি লিক করছি কিন্তু।